Greetings, my name is Kevin Matthews and I am the tax professor. Remember, class is still in session because the learning never stops. And so today we're going to actually talk about something that I get a lot of questions on, more towards why, they come to me directly. Some people always ask, Kevin, why are you always talking about CPAs, EAs, and tax attorneys? And here's the reason why. For the most part, these are credentials that people can receive in order to demonstrate their knowledge in the particular fields of tax. And, there's a lot of places that are out there, and, I don't want to name names, but, you can go to various tax preparation services, and oftentimes what will end up happening is you'll have people who are uncertified. All they do is they sit down and they take a 40-hour course, and then all of a sudden, whiz, bang, boom, they know how to do taxes. It's not really that easy, okay, to do a lot of things that we have to do in taxes. Now, it's kind of like, when you deal with doctors. You're going to have, for example, general practitioners. Those are the people that you go to when you have a general issue. You might also have nurse practitioners. A nurse practitioner is basically a nurse who has worked in the field for a significant amount of time, gotten enough education that they can actually do a lot of things that doctors can do, prescribing medicines, and a lot of other things. They tend to be seen as a less costly alternative. I'll tell you the honest to God truth. I go to a nurse practitioner. Fantastically happy with them. I don't need, somebody who graduates from Harvard Medical School, although I have had a doctor who actually graduated from the University of Chicago, which is one of the more prestigious schools. In fact, it's one of the few places where you not only get your medical degree, but you actually get a PhD at the same time because they put you through so much education. And so he was actually one of the first doctors I had that had a PhD. I thought that was kind of cool. He's really doctor. But, and I've had those doctors, and I've had my nurse practitioner. I'm very happy with my nurse practitioner. She's phenomenally good. And she knows her limits. And she's like, look, you need to go see a specialist, go see a specialist. I've had a couple times where I've had some doctors that, kind of step out of their bounds. I don't have that with my nurse practitioner. And so sometimes, an EA works out well for people, and sometimes a CPA works out well for people, and sometimes you get into a lot of trouble. Now you need to call a tax attorney because now you're in a lot of buku trouble. And so we want to make sure that you can get out of it. Now, one thing I want to say about all three of these credentials have this in common. They're all capable of producing tax returns. They're all capable of practicing before the IRS. Okay. Again, I would say EA, CPAs, and tax attorneys are really tools in a toolbox that you can use. And it's how we got there that's more important, and how that's going to fit your needs that you have. The big questions that we always get asked, why do you often say in your videos to check out with our CPA, EA, or tax attorney? Or why should I even hire one of these guys? They're going to spend money on that credential. They're probably going to charge me more money, right? Again, sometimes you get what you pay for. There's some people that I've known who, they want to go cheap, and those are usually the people that come to me later on, and they're like, yeah, Kevin, I thought I could handle this on my own. I thought I could go to H&R Block or whatever to deal with this, and they're dealing with very complicated issues. And again, a good majority of the population should be going to a place like H&R Block, should be going to a place like Liberty Tax Service, because they can handle most people's needs. If you get into really complicated stuff in your tax returns, however, you probably want somebody with a lot more experience that's able to handle a lot of those things. So what is an EA? An EA is what's called an enrolled agent. Enrolled agents are people who have completed the EA certification. This certification is actually offered by the IRS directly, and so you have to apply with the IRS in order to be able to get your EA and get that done. You have to have a PTIN, which is a number required in order to file tax returns and essentially register the participants with the IRS. I remember when I was first getting into the CPA field, every firm I worked at said you had to have a PTIN, which I never understood because most of us never sign tax returns, at the staff or senior level. You're not going to sign a tax return. But we always require that, if you work at a CPA firm, you're going to have your PTINs. Personally, my personal opinion on it is if you're not signing tax returns, I don't care. It's not something that you should be worrying about. Now, again, that's my personal feeling. Now, of course, all of my people are going to have those PTINs because we're going to do what everybody else does. To also become an enrolled agent, you have to take a special examination and achieve a passing score. Enrolled agents are required to maintain 24 hours per year of continuing education. So they have to continually go back and refresh their skills, which is good. And enrolled agents are also able to practice for the IRS and represent clients in administrative hearings and audits. So if you get into an audit situation and you need to go to the IRS and you want to sign a power of attorney with somebody, they have to have either an EA, a CPA, or a tax attorney designation. And if they don't have one of those, they can't argue on your behalf in front of the IRS. And so, sometimes if you go to one of those less expensive places, they don't have that. Now, some of the bigger ones do. I know H&R Block and Liberty Tax Service do have CPAs, EAs, and tax attorneys who work for them. And if for some reason, if they make a mistake on your tax return, but they think they didn't really make a mistake on your tax return, they'll fight it to the IRS for you using an insurance service that you can purchase into. I've never been a big fan of that. I looked into it for a little while, but I've always felt that, I don't know. I just, the insurance aspect of things, I think that's for insurance people, not for CPAs. So what is a CPA? A CPA is a certified public accountant who is certified by the state where they primarily intend to practice. Myself, I'm actually kind of unique. They don't do this doesn't happen as much as it used to in the past. I have a Virginia license. I don't have it here. Yeah, this is actually my Virginia license right here. I forgot. I actually moved that over. But this is my license for the state of Virginia, or the Commonwealth of Virginia. Boy, I'm just new to Virginia. I've only lived here for a couple of years, so I haven't gotten the lingo down quite yet. But this is my license. You can go online and you can take a look and look for me. I'm on there and see what my standing is. I just renewed, so I know that I'm in good standing. And then second of all, I'm also certified in the state of Maryland, and I'm also certified in the District of Columbia. Now, the reason why is, as my company grows, I am intending on opening practices in those states, and you do have to have somebody who is certified in that state in order to open a practice out there. So you want to make sure that that you do have that, because they want you to be certified in that jurisdiction. Now, generally, if you're certified in one jurisdiction, they'll let it cross over, especially if they're border states. I just feel it's better to be certified in that area and just be done with it. You don't have to deal with any of this cross-jurisdictional stuff that everybody has to go with. Lawyers have to go through that all the time, and I hear it's a complete pain for them. I feel bad for them. CPAs, in order to be licensed in Virginia, and this is the Virginia because each state's different. They can do their licensing different. But in order to do it in Virginia, you have to have 150 credit hours of college courses, a 4-year degree or higher, but most will have a master's nowadays. And when I say most have a master's, I'm talking about people who are like in their 40s and younger. I've been meeting with a lot of people who are like in their 50s and 60s, and I'm like, hey, where'd you go get your degrees at? And they're like, well, I only have one degree, I have a bachelor's degree, and I got it from blah. That's because the 150 credit hour was only instituted nationwide. I remember the big push on it back in 2002, 2003. So it's actually a pretty recent requirement compared to some of the other stuff. You don't have to have a master's. Some people will just stick around and get an extra 30 hours. Sometimes they'll say, "Hey, I got a bachelor's in accounting." I'll tell you one of the things I found interesting. I knew a guy once who had a bachelor's degree in accounting, and he had a second bachelor's degree in music. And the reason is that this guy was a phenomenally good French horn player. Very good. He was very talented. I actually watched him in a concert once, and he was very good at what he did. And so, he had a bachelor's degree in music and a bachelor's degree in accounting. And, so he didn't stick around and get the master's, and he actually got hired by the Big Four. And the reason why they hired him is they really liked his personality, and they liked the fact that he had some good background. So it doesn't require that you have a master's. Most will do it. And a lot of colleges nowadays do what they call the 3+2 program. So you do the first 3 years and you're actually taking all undergraduate courses. And then once you hit the last 2 years of this 5-year program, you'll start filtering in some grad classes as you filter in your the rest of your undergrad classes. And by the time you finish, they'll hand you your bachelor's and your master's all at once. I'm not a big fan of these, the 3+2 programs, because I think, for me personally, I got my bachelor's. I went off for 2 years and then I came back and got my master's. I thought that was a much better solution. But again, it's personal preference. I've known a lot of people who do just fine if they do the 3+2 programs. But I also tend to believe, I like, more worldly views. My bachelor's actually wasn't in accounting, it was in Asian studies. I tend to think that I have a more broad education and a broad background that actually makes me better at doing what I do, as opposed to somebody who has studied for a bachelor's in accounting, a master's in accounting, and whatever else in accounting. So the VBOA, which is the Virginia Board of Accountancy, strongly encourages getting the master's degree when applying for licensure. They haven't quite gone to the level that they're going to say that they're going to require it. I think it's a matter of time. I think it's a matter of time that they're going to require it. So if they don't have it, they're going to need it. You also have to have an accounting concentration or an equivalent. And they say an equivalent because sometimes people will get these degrees over in foreign countries and they won't call themselves accountants, but they're really accountants. So they do have the equivalency that they do. CPAs are registered with the IRS. In other words, we get a PTIN. We are authorized to practice before the IRS, provided that they are compliant with what's called Circular 230. Circular 230 is our IRS regulations. It's also what I call our ethics regulations. It says what I must do for you, what you must do for me, and where I get into trouble and where you get into trouble, and kind of where a lot of those lines are, and where the IRS has their responsibilities that they have to do. It's a very important document. I sometimes sit down and I'll just read it, just to reread stuff. The good news is that I don't know if I have one here. I took them all to the office, but I have these things called quick guides, and all the quick guides have it in the back. It's not hard to find one, and of course you can always find it on the internet. But I always read it every now and then just to remind myself of the things that need to be done, and that's just because I tend to be a very ethics-oriented individual. So in Virginia, we have to maintain 40 hours per year of continuing education in order to maintain our certification. Some like, I'm going to be doing my DC. DC requires that I just have 80. As long as it's 80 over the past 2 years, they're happy. Because DC and Maryland, they recertify. I do my license once every 2 years. In fact, it's always on the other year. So this year it's DC. Next year it'll be Maryland for me. I don't have my DC license anymore. It's in my office back in Herndon. But the it's I just redo it and then it's up again. So again, I like to do it just because and sometimes clients will sit there and say, "Oh, you have licenses in all three." Sometimes it makes them feel better. Between you, me, and the fly in the wall guys, it doesn't make a difference. If you're licensed in one place, you should be able to pass it in others. Although there are some states that are a little harder than others. Florida, for a long time, never had a work requirement for their licensing. Once you passed the test, you were certified. Some states required 2 years in order to get licensed. Virginia has a 1-year requirement. That you have to work in accounting or some finance fields. And some, I remember, back in the old days, some states actually required you had to work at a specified type of CPA firm. It had to be a professional firm, that was licensed as a firm, because there's some CPA practices that don't license as a firm. They license only as the individuals, and that wouldn't qualify for the experience. So it can be a little difficult. And I'm sorry about going on and on about the CPA, but that's what I am, so I tend to know more about it. So the tax attorney. A tax attorney is a lawyer who specializes in the area of tax. Many tax attorneys focus on their practice in helping clients. Let me tell you how it works with law school. You go to law school for 3 years. You learn everything. Okay? You learn everything that a basic attorney needs to learn. Okay? Once you get out and you go work for a firm, you will tend to gravitate towards whatever field it is that you're going to get into. Okay, some people, and some people will go work at a firm that specializes in one type. Employment law, for example. Patents and trademarks is another one. Now, with patents and trademarks, you actually have to be certified by the U.S. Patent Office. But tax law firms, they go work for a tax law firm, they go do it. Estate law firms, where you're doing estates and trusts and wills and all that stuff. So, generally speaking, you have to, you have to take 7 to 9 years, depending on a variety of factors. You have to pass the bar exam in the state where you seek to practice. Many attorneys, especially here in the Washington, D.C. metro area, they're barred in all 3 jurisdictions just because it's so easy to cross states and do stuff. So, it could happen that, you go to an attorney and they say, hey, I'm barred in these 3 states. Now, they'll have one state they primarily work in, and that's probably where you need to stick with them. But if for some reason it crosses into the next state, they can work in that state if they are barred there. Each state maintains... So each state maintains what attorneys must do in order to maintain their practice, and is pretty involved, so I will not go there. I've talked to a few attorneys about it, and they're, like I said, hey, I'm going to be making a video about what tax attorneys have to do. They're like, we don't want to talk about our continuing education. It's a mess. So it's just something that they have. So here's the question for you. Which one is good for your situation? And it depends on your tax situation. If you have a pretty straightforward tax situation, an EA is probably good enough. You don't have to worry too much about stuff. If you have a W-2, maybe a 1098 because you have home mortgage interest, you do a couple charitable contributions, you're not hard, you're not difficult. You'd probably be better served going to an EA who's probably going to charge you less because they didn't have to go get this bachelor's and master's degree in order to do stuff. Now, I will tell you, a lot of EAs that I've worked with will have the requirements to sit for the CPA exam. And sometimes just for whatever reason, they couldn't get to the CPA. Sometimes, and I have met a few that the reason why is because they couldn't study hard enough. There's some people that I know, they're just not good test takers. There's other people that I know, life got in the way. I have a very good friend of mine. He graduated from college. Got his bachelor's, got his master's degree. 2 months after graduating from college, found out his girlfriend found out she was pregnant. He did the right thing, got married to her, and she found out, about a year after having the first kid, she found out she's pregnant again. 2 kids running around the whole house the whole time, and she's not able to go work. He has to go work. He doesn't have time to be sitting around studying for the exam. So by the time the kids were old enough that his wife was going back to work and he's able to sit down for the CPA exam, he's got 5 or 6 years into it. He's already ready to go to manager. So what he may do, and actually this is what my friend ended up doing, is he ended up taking the EA exam. Because he knew everything. He just needed to sit down and take the exam, and he ended up passing it. Now he's an EA. And he's very good at what he does. I have another friend of mine. He just everything else gets to be priority. And it's not that, it's not that he's not smart. I think that if he sat down, studied, and took the test, he could pass it. There's just certain people who just do it at the time that they do. And I've seen some CPAs who are better. I've seen some EAs who are actually better at taxes than some CPAs just because they've been doing it for so long. They know their area very well, and they're very good at what they do. And then I've seen some CPAs that will blow EAs away because of the knowledge that they have. Again, I think that it really depends on your situation. I'm an expert in international. I know 2 of my friends who are EAs that are international experts. I would send you to an EA that's an international expert before I would send you to a CPA if you have an international issue. I mean, obviously I bring you to me first, but if I didn't get you, then I would send you to one of these other 2 people over here because I know they can handle your stuff because they understand international issues because they deal with it all the time. Again, if you're going to get a business tax return done, probably going to send you to a CPA. The other area where you're going to need a CPA is if, say, for example, you need assurance work done. If you need an audit, a review, compilation, financial statement compilations, or financial statement preparations, you have to go to a CPA for those. You cannot go to a tax attorney. You cannot go to an EA for it. Tax attorneys are normally used where there are significant legal issues. In other words, you're going to court or you're significantly out of compliance. I had a guy who walked into my office and said, I ain't filed tax returns in 10 years. What do I do? And I'm like, go to this person. I can't touch you. Because I'd love to work for you, but you need to get those tax returns put into compliance first before I can help you, because there could be significant liability that the tax attorney is going to help try to get you to becoming compliant with. Now, that's not to suggest that tax attorneys at all will not do your tax returns at all. I know some tax attorneys who run their own practice. They do tax returns on the side, sort of as a way to make income in between tax cases. But it's my personal opinion is like taking a sledgehammer when all you need is a regular hammer. And I don't want to disparage anybody who works in the industry in these three areas. I think what it really comes down to, though, is the personality of the professional and the level of desired comfort you want with your tax experience. That's what it really comes down to. You got to click. If you trust the EA more than you trust the CPA, do the EA. If you trust the tax attorney more than you trust the other two, go to the tax attorney. You need to be meeting with these people and interviewing them for the job. I just had a client who called me a couple days ago and said, Kevin, I'm going to be straight up in front with you. I'm calling 3 CPAs. These are the criteria that they have to meet. You meet those criteria because I see it on your website, but I'm calling 2 others after that. I was happy with that. Make me work for it. And that's what I ended up doing and taking and we're going to have our interview here in the next day or two, but it seems like I'm going to have it nailed because a lot of the stuff that he was looking for I'm able to do, but we'll see. I've met some great and worked with some great EAs. I've also seen some pretty bad ones. I don't think the certification is going to tell you whether a person's good at what they do or not. They're going to tell you whether they're qualified, but they're not going to tell you if they're good at what they do or not. And so that you cannot replace sitting down, shaking hands, getting a feel for the individual. Does this person have my best interest at heart? Do they have the knowledge necessary in order to do the stuff? And if they don't, can this person professionally acknowledge that and send me somewhere else? Okay, so if you need a CPA, what would you want to do? First of all, do your basic research as you would with any other buy decision. I would actually first of all recommend going to review pages. Now, Yelp and Facebook can be very, very difficult when considering, when looking into that, because I've noticed that there's some CPAs who've been in business for over 20 years. They've got like 3 Yelp reviews, and maybe one's bad and 2 are phenomenal. Do I think that's a good representation of who they are? No. I remember when my wife and I go to a restaurant, we won't touch a restaurant unless it has at least 100 reviews and at least 4 stars. Well, actually, we'll touch a restaurant if it's got 3 stars, but it better have some very good recent reviews and at least 100. Okay. If I was going to put that same requirement on CPA firms, I wouldn't go to anybody, because I don't think there's anybody who's out there. I've been in business only 2 years, and I think I've got about 12 reviews or 10 reviews. I haven't looked at my reviews in a while. But that's the thing. I don't have very many reviews. Mine are all good. Mine are all 5 stars, luckily. So far, I haven't made anybody mad enough to do something else. But that's just kind of the way it is. So you can go to the Board of Accountancy for the state and research there too. You can pull up my history, Kevin Matthews. You can see that I've had no judgments against me, which is accurate. You can also pull up my firm. My firm's got a license, and then it'll tell you about my firm. Although I've only got 2 years of history. Now I've been a CPA since 2011, so I've actually had more history there. But again, I haven't had any questions about that. So, again, I would say if you're going to hire a CPA, go to the Board of Accountancy website and actually pull up their background. So I want to thank you very much for watching this video. Remember, my name is Kevin Matthews, and I am the Tax Professor. Class is still in session because the learning never stops. You can watch any of our other videos and continue that learning. Well, again, we want to thank you for watching this video. If you want to reach out to me, you can actually do one of two ways. You can actually go to the comment box below, or you can go to my website at www.betasolutionscpa.com. That's www.betasolutionscpa.com. You can also visit us on Yelp, Facebook, and Twitter. I will be actually putting out more and more posts on Twitter this year, and I hope that you guys can benefit from that. Again, thank you very much for watching the video.